My friends, freedom has never been denied by a lack of opportunity alone. It has most often been surrendered quietly, willingly, day after day, by ordinary choices that seem harmless in the moment. The tragedy of the 99% is not that they are oppressed by force, but that they are imprisoned by habits they refuse to question. Chains today are not always made of iron, they are made of comfort, excuses, and unexamined beliefs. My brothers and sisters, there is a quiet prison that holds more people than any walls of stone ever could. It has no guards, no locks, no visible bars, yet millions wake up inside it every single day. This prison is built from comfort and fear. It is soft, familiar, and deceptively safe, which is why so many never attempt to leave it. Most people in the 99% are not there because they lack intelligence or potential. They are there because comfort whispers more persuasively than courage. Comfort tells them to remain where they are, to accept what is familiar, to avoid the pain of growth. Fear reinforces this message by magnifying the cost of failure, while hiding the far greater cost of never trying at all. Together, comfort and fear form a sentence that can last a lifetime. Fear of failure is especially powerful because it disguises itself as wisdom. It tells a person to be realistic, to wait for the right moment, to avoid embarrassment, to protect what little they have. Yet history teaches us that no meaningful freedom has ever been achieved by those who waited until the risk disappeared. Growth has always demanded sacrifice, uncertainty, and the willingness to be uncomfortable in the present for the sake of dignity in the future. There is a cruel irony in this prison. The longer one remains inside it, the smaller the world appears. Dreams slowly shrink into routines. Potential is exchanged for predictability. And what once felt like safety begins quietly to feel like suffocation. But because the bars are familiar, many mistake this suffocation for normal life. We must understand that fear does not vanish on its own. It grows when it is obeyed. Each time a person chooses comfort over challenge, fear becomes stronger, more convincing, more authoritative. Eventually, it no longer needs to shout. A gentle suggestion is enough to stop action. At that point, the prison door may be open, but the mind refuses to walk through it. True freedom begins with an honest recognition. Staying comfortable has a price, and that price is often paid in lost years, unfulfilled purpose, and quiet regret. Courage does not mean the absence of fear. It means deciding that fear will not be the ruler of one's life. It means accepting that failure is not a verdict, but a teacher, and that dignity is found not in avoiding mistakes, but in rising after them. Those who rise above the 99% do not possess a different kind of fear. They possess a different relationship with it. They are willing to feel fear and move forward regardless. They choose growth over ease, responsibility over excuses, and long-term freedom over short-term comfort. If there is a single choice that determines whether a person remains imprisoned or steps into possibility, it is this: whether they will continue to negotiate with fear or finally confront it. For once fear loses its authority, comfort loses its grip, and the journey toward true freedom can finally begin. My brothers and sisters, there was a time when chains were visible. They cut into the skin, restricted the body, and announced their cruelty to the world. Today, the most powerful chains are unseen. They rest not on the wrists, but on the mind. And these chains are far more difficult to break because many do not even know they are wearing them. Mental slavery begins quietly. It begins the moment a person stops questioning, stops learning, and accepts the world exactly as it is explained to them by others. It grows stronger when opinions are inherited rather than examined, when beliefs are borrowed rather than tested. A mind that is not trained to think becomes dependent, and dependence is the enemy of freedom. Charlie Munger spoke harshly about this reality because the truth itself is harsh. He warned that ignorance, poor thinking habits, and a refusal to learn are not accidents. They are choices repeated over time. Each day, a person chooses entertainment over education, agreement over understanding, comfort over curiosity. Another link is added to the chain. No one else needs to impose it. The individual completes the work themselves. The tragedy is that mental slavery feels easy. It requires no effort to remain uninformed, no courage to follow the crowd, no discipline to repeat familiar ideas. But ease should never be mistaken for peace. A mind that is not exercised slowly loses its strength. It becomes vulnerable to manipulation, to fear, to anger, and to hopelessness. Such a mind can be ruled without force because it has surrendered its independence. I have learned that oppressors, whether political or economic, do not fear physical strength as much as they fear independent thought. A person who can think clearly, who can analyze, who can learn continuously, becomes difficult to control. That is why mental freedom has always been discouraged by those who benefit from the silence of the many. To read is an act of defiance. To think deeply is an act of resistance. To change one's mind when presented with truth is an act of courage. Yet the 99% are often taught subtly and persistently that learning ends with formal education, that questioning is dangerous, and that thinking differently is risky. These lessons do N-O-T liberate, they confine. Breaking mental chains is uncomfortable. It requires humility to admit ignorance, discipline to study when others rest, and bravery to stand alone when one's conclusions differ from the majority. But no freedom worth having has ever been comfortable. The pain of learning is temporary. The cost of remaining ignorant is lifelong. A free mind does not mean knowing everything. It means remaining teachable. It means seeking truth over validation, understanding over applause. When the mind is free, the body and circumstances eventually follow. History has proven this again and again. If the 99% remain where they are, it is not because the door to freedom is locked. It is because the mind has forgotten how to turn the handle. And the day a person commits to learning, thinking, and questioning relentlessly, that day the chains begin to fall. My brothers and sisters, history teaches us a simple but uncomfortable truth. Freedom has always demanded patience. It has never belonged to those who demanded immediate reward, but to those who were willing to endure sacrifice today for a future they might not yet fully see. This principle applies not only to nations, but to individuals. It is the quiet line that separates those who rise from those who remain where they are. The 99% are not defeated by lack of opportunity alone. They are defeated by the hunger for immediate comfort. Pleasure today is easy to justify. It feels earned. It feels harmless. A little tea instead of discipline. A little entertainment instead of effort. A little spending instead of saving. Each choice seems small, insignificant. But a life is not shaped by one decision. It is shaped by the accumulation of many. Delayed gratification is not about denying joy. It is about respecting the future enough to protect it. Those who learn to delay pleasure understand that every choice is a vote for the life they will live tomorrow. When discipline is practiced early, freedom arrives later. When pleasure is prioritized early, limitation often arrives instead. Many people believe that those who succeed are simply more fortunate. This belief is comforting because it removes responsibility. But the truth is more demanding. The difference is rarely luck, it is the willingness to do what is difficult while others choose what is easy. It is the courage to say no today so that tomorrow can say yes. We must be honest with ourselves. Discipline feels unfair in the moment. It asks us to work when others rest, to study when others celebrate, to save when others spend, to build quietly while others seek applause. But discipline is not punishment. It is self-respect. It is a declaration that one's future is worth protecting, even from one's present desires. I have seen that societies and individuals collapse not from sudden disaster, but from gradual indulgence. When comfort becomes the highest value, resilience weakens. When immediate pleasure becomes the goal, long-term vision disappears. And when vision is lost, people begin to trade freedom for convenience without even realizing the exchange. Those who rise above the 99% understand time differently. They see time not as something to be consumed, but as something to be invested. They plant seeds knowing the harvest will not be immediate. They accept that progress is slow, quiet, and often lonely. Yet they persist because they understand that freedom delayed is still freedom, but discipline delayed often becomes impossible. Delayed gratification requires faith, faith in oneself, faith in effort, faith in the future. It requires resisting the voice that says, just this once, because that voice rarely speaks only once. It speaks daily, patiently, until a habit is formed and a destiny is shaped. If there is a single choice that determines whether a person remains among the many or rises toward their full potential, it is this: whether they will continue to chase comfort or whether they will choose discipline with dignity. For in the end, freedom is not given as a reward for desire. It is earned through the quiet, consistent courage to wait, to work, and to endure. My brothers and sisters, injustice is real. Inequality is real. Hardship imposed by history, systems, and circumstance is real. I have lived it, and I would never deny its weight. But there is a danger more destructive than injustice itself, and that danger is the belief that our lives are defined entirely by what has been done to us. When a person begins to see themselves only as a victim, something precious is surrendered. Responsibility quietly slips away. Power is handed over to circumstances, to leaders, to history, to fate. And once power is surrendered, progress slows, then stops. The status quo remains not because it is strong, but because resistance has weakened from within. Victimhood can feel justified. It often begins as truth. But when it becomes an identity, it becomes a prison. A person who believes they have no control will never act as if they do. They will wait to be rescued, to be compensated, to be corrected by forces outside themselves. And while they wait, life moves forward without them. This is not a call to ignore injustice. It is a call to confront it with dignity rather than surrender. The most powerful revolutions in history were not led by people who denied oppression, but by people who refused to let oppression define the limits of their actions. They accepted responsibility not because the world was fair, but because freedom demanded it. Blame offers comfort, but it offers no future. It explains failure without correcting it. It soothes pain without healing it. When blame becomes a habit, growth becomes impossible, because growth requires the belief that change is within reach. Even under unjust conditions, there is always a choice: to respond with action or to remain frozen in resentment. Those who rise above the 99% understand this difficult truth. They do not waste their strength arguing endlessly about who is at fault. They ask a harder question: what can I do here and now with what I have? They focus on the small circles of control that expand over time. Their skills, their discipline, their thinking, their character. From these small beginnings, larger change becomes possible. I have seen that responsibility is not the same as guilt. To take responsibility does not mean you caused your suffering. It means you refuse to let suffering have the final word. It means you choose agency over bitterness, movement over stagnation, purpose over despair. There will always be reasons to stop. There will always be unfairness to point to. But history does not remember those who explained their limitations well. It remembers those who acted despite them. Freedom is never achieved by waiting for perfect justice. It is achieved by people who move forward even while justice is still incomplete. The moment a person stops saying, "This is why I cannot," and begins saying, "This is what I will do anyway," something changes. The mind straightens, the spine stiffens, hope becomes practical. If the 99% remain where they are, it is often not because the world has defeated them completely, but because they have allowed victimhood to speak louder than responsibility. And the day responsibility is reclaimed, even in small ways, that day the balance of power begins to shift. First within the individual and then slowly within the world itself. My brothers and sisters, true freedom is often spoken of as if it were a destination granted by others. But the deepest freedom is not given, it is built within. It begins the moment a person chooses honesty over illusion, discipline over impulse, and principle over convenience. This freedom demands uncomfortable truths, because without truth, there can be no genuine liberation. The hardest person to confront is not an enemy, not a system, not even history. It is oneself. Many prefer to look away from their weaknesses, their inconsistencies, their unkept promises to themselves. Self-deception offers temporary peace, but it steals long-term dignity. A person cannot rise beyond the 99% while refusing to look honestly at their own habits, choices, and character. Freedom begins with the courage to say, "I must change." Relentless self-mastery is not about perfection. It is about direction. It is the daily effort to govern one's thoughts, emotions, and actions instead of being governed by them. Without self-mastery, talent is wasted, opportunity. Wise mishandled and good intentions dissolve under pressure. A person who cannot control themselves will always be controlled by something else: fear, desire, anger, or the approval of others. Continuous learning is the companion of self-mastery. The world does not stand still, and neither can the mind. Those who stop learning begin to repeat themselves, and repetition without growth leads to stagnation. Learning is not merely the accumulation of information, it is the willingness to revise one's beliefs, to admit error, and to expand understanding. This humility is strength, not weakness. A mind that continues to learn remains free. Ethical strength is equally essential. Rising above the many does not justify abandoning integrity. True success that is built on dishonesty is fragile. It collapses under its own weight. Ethical self-mastery means choosing what is right, even when it is unseen, even when it is costly, even when shortcuts promise faster reward. Character is what remains when no one is watching, and character determines whether freedom will endure. The path of self-mastery is often lonely. It requires standing apart from the crowd, resisting popular thinking, and walking a harder road without applause. The many will question it, mock it, or misunderstand it. But history has never been shaped by those who followed the crowd. It has been shaped by those who had the courage to stand alone long enough for the truth to become visible. Self-mastery also requires patience. Change does not announce itself loudly. It appears quietly through consistency. A disciplined choice today, repeated tomorrow, becomes a habit. A habit becomes a character. A character shapes a destiny. There are no dramatic shortcuts, only steady commitment. If the 99% remain where they are, it is often because they seek freedom without discipline, success without self-examination, and growth without discomfort. But freedom that avoids discomfort is not freedom, it is illusion. True freedom demands that we master ourselves before attempting to master circumstances. And when a person does this, when they choose honesty, learning, integrity, and discipline, they may walk a difficult path, but they walk it with dignity. And dignity, once earned, cannot be taken away.